Why does everything seem harder for me than it does for others? You look around and see people your age moving forward, careers starting to stabilize, relationships forming, lives taking shape, and then there's you, still unsure, still questioning, still feeling like you're standing still while time keeps walking past you. You don't say much about it. You don't complain loudly. You don't collapse in obvious ways. You just carry it, the quiet accusation. I'm lazy. And over time, that word starts to feel true, not because it is, but because it's repeated often enough in your own head. For many INFJs in their 20s, this isn't a rare phase. It's a defining atmosphere. You wake up without physical exhaustion, yet the day already feels heavy. You have ideas, values, depth, but no momentum. You care deeply, but act slowly. You want meaning, but the world keeps offering speed. From the outside, it looks like hesitation. From the inside, it feels like drowning in thought. Society has a simple explanation for this. It always does. You're not disciplined enough. You're not hungry enough. You're not trying hard enough. So the label appears, lazy. Your family worries. Your peers move on. And you go quiet. Because arguing against that label requires energy you no longer have. But here's the question. No one ever asks you, not seriously, not gently, not honestly. What if you're not lazy at all? What if the problem isn't your effort, but the system you've been forcing your mind to survive in? What if the thing draining you isn't work, but the constant internal labor no one sees? This is not a comforting idea. It doesn't excuse everything. It doesn't promise quick clarity, but it does something far more important. It puts the right name on the right problem. Let's talk about what laziness actually looks like. Real laziness is not complicated. It's the absence of care, the absence of conflict, the absence of inner resistance. Lazy people don't lie awake at night replaying conversations. They don't feel guilt while resting. They don't question their purpose while scrolling through another hour. They don't carry shame for not becoming who they think they should be. They simply don't mind. And that's the detail most INFJs miss. Because if you're watching this, chances are you mind far too much. You care about doing the right thing. You care about choosing a life that aligns with your values. You care about becoming someone meaningful, not just successful. You think deeply before acting. You analyze consequences. You hesitate because you see too many layers, not too few. And then, when action doesn't come easily, you punish yourself for it. You call it laziness, but laziness doesn't feel like this. Laziness doesn't feel like guilt when resting. It doesn't feel like frustration when potential stays trapped inside. It doesn't feel like watching others move forward while you stay behind, wondering what's wrong with you. Lazy people don't feel guilty for resting. That guilt, that constant background noise of self-criticism, is proof of engagement, not avoidance. And yet, in your 20s, that distinction gets lost. Because this decade doesn't reward depth, it rewards output, speed over reflection, visibility over integrity, action over alignment. So when you slow down, not by choice, but by overload, the world assumes you're opting out, and eventually, so do you. Here's what's actually happening inside your mind. INFJ cognition is not idle. It is constantly active, even when nothing appears to be happening. You're scanning environments for emotional undercurrents, reading subtle shifts in tone, adjusting yourself to avoid unnecessary conflict, filtering your words before they leave your mouth. This isn't anxiety, it's awareness. But awareness consumes energy. Now place that mind into your 20s. Open offices, constant deadlines, public comparison, metrics that reward visibility over substance. Every small task demands more than execution. It demands emotional regulation, social calibration, internal negotiation. By the time you sit down to start, your mind has already done hours of invisible work. From the outside, someone asks, "Why are you so slow?" From the inside, the truth is simpler and harder to explain. There's no empty space left to begin. This is not a lack of drive. It's not low ambition. It's cognitive saturation. You're not unmotivated. You're over-processed. And no amount of forcing, shaming, or self-discipline can fix a system that's already running at capacity. But instead of recognizing overload, INFJs internalize blame because it feels safer to think something is wrong with you than to accept that the environment itself may be misaligned. So you push, you try harder, you wake up earlier, you add routines, you consume productivity, advice not meant for your nervous system. And when that fails, as it often does, the accusation returns, sharper than before. See? Lazy. But the truth is quieter and much more uncomfortable for the world to admit. You're not failing to move forward. You're being asked to run on a terrain your mind was never designed to sprint across. There's a reason this hits INFJs harder in their 20s. Your 20s are sold as a decade of experimentation. Try things, fail fast, pivot often, keep moving. For some personalities, that works. For INFJs, it cuts deep. Because you don't try things lightly. You don't choose paths casually. Every decision passes through meaning, ethics, long-term impact. You don't just ask, will this work? You ask, will this be worth becoming someone I don't recognize? And that question slows everything down. In your 20s, the gap between who you are and who you're expected to be becomes painfully visible. You have ideals that feel non-negotiable. You want your work to matter. You want your time to mean something beyond survival. But the world offers entry-level realities that feel empty, transactional, and loud. So when you step into roles that don't match your values, something strange happens. Your mind doesn't shut down. It doesn't rebel loudly either. It stalls. You can't fully commit, but you can't walk away without a plan. You stay suspended, not resting, not moving. And suspension, over time, turns into paralysis. This is why INFJs in their 20s often feel stuck rather than lost. Lost implies confusion. This is different. You see too clearly what you don't want, but not clearly enough what you can safely move toward. So you wait, and waiting gets mislabeled as laziness. This is where the shame loop begins. It usually starts quietly. You don't meet your own expectations. You don't move as fast as others. You don't have clear milestones to point at. People don't attack you directly. They offer advice. You just need more discipline. Everyone feels tired. You're overthinking. Each comment seems harmless, but over time, they accumulate. You begin to absorb the idea that your inner resistance is a flaw instead of a signal. So you translate misalignment into self-judgment. The loop looks like this. You try to act. You can't sustain it. You blame yourself. You force harder. You burn out faster. And then you repeat. Shame becomes the fuel you run on. But shame was never meant to power people who already care deeply. Shame is not a motivator for people who already care. It doesn't create movement. It creates collapse. Yet INFJs internalize it anyway, because they're good at internalizing everything. They assume the problem is personal, not systemic, not contextual, not environmental. And once shame takes root, even rest feels undeserved. You sit still, but your mind keeps working. You pause, but you don't recover, because the voice follows you. You should be doing more. This is how burnout hides in plain sight. Quiet, polite, invisible. So you try the obvious solution. Discipline. Wake up earlier. Push through resistance. Ignore how you feel. This advice works for people whose exhaustion comes from effort. INFJ. Exhaustion doesn't. It comes from misalignment, from spending energy on things that don't feed your values, from being constantly observed, measured, evaluated, from having no space to think without performing. When discipline is imposed from the outside, without meaning, it becomes self-erosion. You don't become stronger, you become numb. External discipline says, do it anyway. Internal alignment asks, why does this matter to you? INFJs don't resist work. They resist emptiness. And when meaning is absent, no amount of structure can replace it. This is why forcing yourself often makes things worse. You don't just feel tired. You feel disconnected from yourself, like you're living someone else's rhythm. And every day you fail to keep up with that rhythm, the label returns. Lazy, But here's the part that often gets misunderstood. INFJs are not waiting for meaning before they act. Waiting for meaning before action destroys INFJs in their 20s. Meaning is not something that appears first, fully formed. It's something that emerges through engagement, but only in environments that allow depth. The problem isn't that you need perfect clarity before moving. The problem is that you've been surrounded by too many inputs, too much noise, too little space. Your mind never settles long enough to hear its own direction. What actually restores INFJ energy isn't motivation hacks, it's reduction, fewer inputs, deeper focus, unmonitored thinking, space where you're not being watched, evaluated, or compared. When those conditions exist, something changes. You don't need to push yourself. You don't need to be reminded. Movement happens naturally because energy follows alignment. When meaning returns, energy follows, not the other way around. This is why it feels like you're falling behind, even when you're not. In your 20s, progress is measured loudly. Job titles, income, relationships, visible milestones. These markers are easy to compare, easy to display, easy to rank. INFJs rarely move through life in ways that look impressive early on, because while others are building upward, you're building inward. They construct quickly, you excavate deeply. And excavation doesn't look like progress from the outside. It looks like hesitation, like delay, like someone who hasn't figured things out yet. But what's actually happening is slower and more permanent. You're forming a framework that can hold meaning long term. You're questioning assumptions instead of adopting them. You're learning what drains you, not just what pays you. This kind of development doesn't reward urgency. It rewards patience. And patience is easily mistaken for stagnation in a culture obsessed with speed. So you start to panic. Everyone else seems to have a map. You're still questioning the terrain. But here's the truth. No one tells INFJs early enough. Depth takes time, and depth delays visibility. The people who bloom early often rebuild later. The people who build foundations later often sustain longer. This isn't a promise of success. It's a reality of pacing. You're not late. You're not broken. You're not missing something obvious. You're moving on a timeline that doesn't translate well into status updates. And this is the part where most videos try to fix you. They offer steps, frameworks, habits. This one won't, because the last thing you need is another system telling you how to become someone else. What you need, quietly, without pressure, is permission. Permission to stop calling yourself lazy. Permission to stop measuring yourself against people running on different internal fuel. Permission to acknowledge that your exhaustion didn't come from doing nothing. It came from caring too much in the wrong places for too long. You don't need to optimize yourself. You need to listen to the signals you've been ignoring because they didn't sound productive. The resistance you feel isn't sabotage, it's information. And once you stop fighting it, something subtle happens. The shame loosens, the noise lowers. Your mind starts to regain its natural rhythm. Not fast, not dramatic, but real. So if you're an INFJ in your 20s and you feel stuck, if you wake up with time but no momentum, if you care deeply but act slowly, if you've been carrying the word lazy like a quiet verdict on your character, consider this instead. Maybe you don't need fixing. Maybe nothing is wrong with your drive. Maybe you've just been trying to live on a rhythm that was never yours to begin with. And maybe, just maybe, the moment you stop forcing yourself to keep up is the moment you finally start moving forward. Maybe the most damaging thing you learned in your 20s wasn't failure. It was the name you gave your struggle. You didn't say, I'm overloaded. You didn't say, I'm misaligned. You didn't say, I'm thinking in a world that rewards speed. You said, I'm lazy. And once that word settles in, it colors everything. Every slow morning becomes evidence. Every unfinished plan becomes proof. Every pause feels like a moral failure. But here's the quiet truth. Your nervous system was never designed for constant urgency. Your mind was never meant to sprint without purpose. Your energy was never meant to be extracted without meaning. You are not broken for resisting that. You are responding correctly to something that doesn't fit. And no, This doesn't mean you wait forever. It doesn't mean you avoid responsibility. It doesn't mean life gets easier overnight. It simply means you stop turning your sensitivity into a crime. You stop mistaking depth for delay. You stop treating exhaustion as a character flaw. You stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What kind of environment lets me function honestly?" That question changes everything, because the moment you stop fighting your nature, your energy stops leaking through self-judgment, and slowly, without force, clarity begins to return, not as a grand vision, not as instant motivation, but as direction, subtle, quiet, yours. So if you take nothing else from this, take this with you. You don't need harsher discipline. You don't need louder motivation. You don't need to become someone faster, tougher, or less sensitive. Maybe you don't need fixing at all. Maybe you just need a different rhythm and the courage to stop apologizing for it.